Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I'm KMBest. He's Lambi series, and he's decided to make me tell the story of why I'm sitting so weird and what's going on with the back pad. So what's going on is a crazy RNG play happened, and I threw up my hands really, really fast and hard, and the process of doing that injured my back. And that like I don't know, when they said that you sort of age out of video gaming, I assumed it was more mental than physical. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think that the thing that would...
So wait. So basically, when did this happen again?
This happened on Saturday. We're recording on Monday. So it's been a couple days. I have been basically living with this thing glued to my back because I threw my hands up in the air too fast and too aggressively.
Wait, so basically, so you did this.
Yes.
And you strained your back.
Yes.
If that is not a sign of old age, I have no... How do you do this?
Yeah, you think that like, oh, you'll age out of video games because you don't have the reflexes anymore. But I play a card game. We don't need reflexes. I'll age out of video games because my body can't handle the stress of the RNG anymore. Like that's...
All right,
that's where we are. But in terms of Marvel Snap cards, we're going to start with Boomerang, who is the card releasing into Series 5 this week. A 2/2 with a fascinating ability. Boomerang, when he returns to your hand, steals 4 power from your opponent's hand. He also has an activate. Yes, he does. When he does this, he steals 4 power your opponent's hand. He also has an activate that can return him to your hand once. This is pretty clearly a card that is aimed at a bounce deck that can have multiple ways of returning him. The built-in one is nice, but it's also a card that I think stacks up pretty heavily if you can get more and more and more of it. I feel like one round of afflicts on my cards, maybe not so much a thing I care about, but if I get -8 afflicted to my hand, suddenly those cards go from I really want to play them to I really don't want to play them. There's also pretty relevant text in a world where there's a lot of like Captain Carter Maverick stuff happening and a lot of like Mother Ascani stuff happening. A lot of decks are playing from hand right now. And if you're just taking power away from them, that does seem like the kind of thing that could legitimately impact several top decks. But fundamentally, I'm not sure this has the rate on it to keep up.
This card, as in like, I want to say interesting, but I think it's actually more than interesting. I think it's actually potentially game breaking in a sense, right? Because you brought up the point about like the Mother Ascani, like the multiplicative stuff, right? Like when you minus, it's the same thing. We always talk about when you gain power on stuff that multiplies, right? It's like not just gaining power, it's like just like it exponentially increases, right? So when you reduce power on stuff that's meant to multiply, it exponentially decreases as well. So it's like it actually does a lot, you know. Like if you actually reduce the right cards in your opponent's hand, it actually does a lot. The thing about this card is that from the way I'm reading it is that like it says it randomly steals 4 power from cards in your opponent's hand. So I assume it's not gonna be always like reduced 1, 1, 1, 1. It could be like
I think it's random. Yeah,
it could be 4 and 0. It could be 3 and 1. So it's just completely random, right? So I don't know how to judge something like this, but I guess if your opponent is playing a deck that in general wants to duplicate its stuff in hand, anything you hit would be fine. Like if you hit Brood, for example, you don't really care, right? Whether it's -1, -2, it's minus a lot more than that. So it's an interesting card.
Yeah, I think the one thing that gets me about this card that first of all, the entire time you were talking, all I could think of was conceiving Boomerang as a guy doing this. Whoa, Boomerang! Yeah. Boomerang!
Wait, are you able to do this?
Yeah, I can do it. I can do it. It's fine. It just hurts, and I'm willing to suffer for my art. I think actually the thing is, it doesn't hurt as long as I get to here. But if I go higher than that, it starts to get like a little bit iffy. But I could do this, right? But go higher, suddenly it's like a little iffy. Start turning my head, suddenly it's like a little iffy. The point being is that Boomerang, who now has a motion associated with him and not just every time we say him, you gotta go Boomerang, is a card that goes in a bounce deck. And the bounce deck gets pretty hard gate kept by Gambit Horseman of Death. Like, it is really bad. And that is the ultimate issue that bounce decks have right now in this metagame, is that they want to do things like invest Joaquin Torres, Rocket Raccoon stuff, Silver Sable, Joaquin Torres, all of that kind of thing gets completely obliterated by Gambit Horseman of Death. And I think this guy, unfortunately, also does, which is kind of a recurring theme on the season here, where you have Boomerang, who's kind of getting obliterated by Gambit Horseman of Death. Several of the like Aunt May decks are kind of getting obliterated by Gambit Horseman of Death. It's a real note that Gambit Horseman of Death is kind of an anti-scalar card in a season where they're printing kind of a lot of scalars. And I do think that that kind of thing is the shadow hanging over probably the entire season. Not necessarily making any of these cards bad per se. Like, I still think Spider-Man Brand New Day is unbelievable. I think these cards are like roughly in the same spots they would be outside of Gambit existing, but Gambit existing certainly isn't helping. And he's definitely a card whose shadow is looming large this season. Moving from Boomerang onto Tarantula, Tarantula, unfortunately, we don't have a sort of associated hand motion for him. Tarantula is a 2/2 end of turn that actually, for a 2/2 end of turn, really isn't all that bad. What he does is, if you have the strongest guy, he will give himself 1 power, and he will give 2 cards in your hand 1 power. So if you can get 2 procs off him, he's like a 2/8. That's not really a bad thing to have. It's just that as a 2/2, he struggles to get you to the point where he's paying you off, and you need to be able to be a deck that can support him beyond just needing him to give you stats, which is why the only deck I've actually found that I want to play him in is Aurora, because Aurora is absolutely in the business of, I would like to just play like a card that's like a 2/8. I would like to play a 2/8 that says end of turn, thank you very much, call it a day. We have plenty of activates in Aurora at 2 costs. There's Zombie Mr. Fantastic, there's Herbie, there is Awesome Andy, tons of those, no good end of turns. The only end of turns that actually gain power are cards like Havoc and Thena, which we never get anything out of. So this guy just being an end of turn at 2 cost that can occasionally be a 2/5 or a 2/8 on his own without needing the Aurora buff, like, could actually help us. Like, sometimes when we have an Iska, that's the strongest guy. That's just enough for the card to be good, I think, for me. But it is a very limited role that the card can play, and it is a role that's, like, nice, but you can replace it with Herbie or Awesome Andy, because that's what you'd be cutting for it in the first place. It's a fine card to have in the decks that I think probably does, if I had to guess. I wouldn't be shocked if it was best in slot there, just by virtue of being what it is, but I also think that's kind of like the only place I want to play it.
Yeah, this card, this card just screams like limited potential to me. Like this kind of okay, so this kind of like scaling ability, not scaling ability, sorry, this kind of end of turn ability. To me, right, this card is way too conditional. Like, it is way too conditional in what it has to do. Like, and it doesn't do enough, right? Like, firstly, it's conditional, and secondly, the payoff for this conditional ability is like, it's not enough, right? It isn't buff enough. Like, the buff is not enough. And also, like, it forces you to play in a certain way, right? If you have the highest power among cards in play here, like, basically you need to stack. You need to stack, or you need to play the big guy here. You need to play this in the lane of the big guy. Like, you are forced to do it like that. So it limits the outplay ability of what you can do, because you are forced to play a certain way, and your opponent knows you are forced to play a certain way. So yeah, I'm not too interested in this card, to be honest.
Tombstone also came out kind of like B tier card in an F tier deck. And I hate to say that about Destroy, where Tombstone is a perfectly fine card, 2/3 on reveal, destroy your weakest cards in the other 2 locations. Perfectly fine. I mean, any card that's destroying your own stuff is going to be a little bit clunky sometimes. There's plenty of room to misplay with this guy. He's a little bit more like a scalpel than he is like an easy to use card. But I've certainly felt that he's like a very solid card that was very worth picking up in the context of the event. Like, this is one of the better event cards. It's just he goes in a bunch of decks that aren't very good. Dormammu stuff really likes to see him. Basic Destroy stuff really likes to see him. You can play him in Phantom X, but I don't think he's optimal in Phantom X. It's a really tough spot for a guy, because I do think he's just the kind of card that really does help these archetypes, but he doesn't help these archetypes enough to make these archetypes dramatically better than they are. So it's a little bit like getting, I don't know, what's the analogy I'd like to use here, right? You're eating oatmeal. You've made oatmeal with milk, right? It's nice. It's fine. It's enjoyable. He's like sprinkling a tiny amount of sugar on there. It's like, yeah, okay, I'd rather do that than not do it, but it's not changing much about the thing that I'm doing right now.
I have absolutely no idea what that meant. I have
What's
absolutely
the
no idea
what's
what
the
that just meant.
Singaporean equivalent? Like, what do you guys have that's just like vaguely tasteless? It's like a generic,
Vaguely
yeah, just like something
tasteless.
generic that's just like
No, as in,
boring.
I get that oatmeal and milk is like vaguely tasteless, but why is that Tombstone? Why is Tombstone the equivalent of
Tombstone's not
vaguely
oatmeal and milk. Tombstone's the sugar. The destroy archetype
Okay.
is the oatmeal milk, which is like a very fine, nice thing to have. You know, if you're a medieval peasant, you'd kill for that.
Okay.
Like if you were in 2022, you'd be like, oh my God, Tombstone's amazing, right? But we're
Yeah.
not medieval peasants anymore. And it's like, all right, I would like something better out of the destroy archetype here. This is a pretty nice enabler, but destroy needs way more help than
Okay.
Tombstone
So you're
can give.
saying in 2022, if this thing pops your Wolverine, you'd be
Yeah.
amazed.
Yeah.
Okay,
it'd
that
be
I
s-
get.
yeah.
I get. Like now playing a 4/6 to pop.
It's a 2-3
Yeah,
to
no,
clarify. It's a 2-3. The Wolverine, Tombstone and Wolverine would be 4-6, but you get what I'm saying. I get it. Yeah.
yeah. But it's like you wouldn't want to do that right now.
No.
It's just way too costly and it's too mid. I mean, I don't want to keep saying mid for all the cards that are like legitimately mid.
I
If you
mean,
get what I mean. Like,
that's what you're
it is
here
mid.
for.
It is mid. It's like the amount of the cost of the card to do what it does is it's just meh.
Yep. There's not really much else to say.
Yeah.
Next up, I held my KMBest block party, and I'm going to run the ban list by Lambi first. The ban
Okay.
list was Arishem, Iska,
Mhm.
Supergiant, Mercury, Captain Carter, and Gambit. Now, what I'm going to ask you, because I don't think you know much, what would you say, like, I think I told you before the episode that, like, a bunch of Batroc, a bunch of Cerebro. What would you say your expectations would be hearing that ban list? And how well do they match on to what happened?
Okay, the Cerebral one, I think if I thought a bit deeper, I would probably have thought about it. But the Batroc one made a lot of sense to me,
Okay.
right? Because you are cutting a lot of power from combo decks, right? Like it's kind of obvious you're cutting a lot of power from these combo decks. So like the mid-range shells just flourish, right? It's just like what's the most consistent and efficient way to run through a tournament and like not break and get consistent stats after these bans are shown. The Batroc mid-range shells make a lot of sense. And I also kind of understand why you banned Arishem, because like it's a bit anti-fun, I would
It's
say.
just
Oh, okay,
like
maybe not
that was
anti-fun.
a
It's just
vibe ban. I'm not gonna lie
yeah,
to
it
you.
felt vibeish. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a bit anti-fun to ban Arishem. I don't think Arishem was gonna win regardless, in my opinion. But like it was just like anti-fun, so I kind of get it. But yeah, so I think mid-range shells like the Batroc mid-range caravan stuff would thrive a lot in a world where like Captain Carter is not there as well. So I think that made a lot of sense. The Cerebral one is kind of interesting though. So which one out of these two decks actually has higher power
Well,
output
let me
consistently?
clarify here, because the finals was C4 versus C5. There were
Okay, so a lot
multiple
of Cerebral.
C3s in there, and it felt like most of what was going on was every time the Cerebro decks played a Batroc deck, they won instantly.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, right? So
Yeah.
basically, the Cerebral decks in general just are way
Yep.
above in like stats and points than Batroc mid range.
Yeah, like it honestly felt like
No, you're right.
watching this tournament was like, oh, okay. The reason these Cerebro decks are doing well is because we banned the other combo decks that would normally go over the top of them.
Yes.
Like we banned the decks that are doing more points than them, and we banned the decks that are playing 75 gambits. And now they are wholly able to just run wild in that context. I think they probably have a losing matchup to most of the decks that we banned. And
Mhm.
they have a pretty dominant matchup into like mid-range sludge. When Cerebro's at its best, it's in mid-range metas where it gets to just be like, I'm taller than everything you're doing and I just don't care. And I think that Cerebro is really able to do that in the context of the bans that we gave. And it's actually really interesting to me because it's like you said, it's one of those things that I think if I thought about it for a long enough time, I would have gotten there. But
Makes sense,
it wouldn't have been my immediate reaction. It's one of those things that makes sense when you think about it, but not necessarily was easily predictable, I would say, except by the people who brought Cerebro, who just nailed it, right?
Mhm.
And I think that is really notable that Cerebro is just actually that strong. You know, like just like, hey, take note, because there's like some outliers in this metagame, but right under those outliers, Cerebro does seem like it's just doing some really big stuff. Like Yoda, I know Unhelpful Yoda's playing C3 in High Infinite right now. Like there's stuff to be done in that space probably that maybe I would guess things like Gambit and Carter hold it back, but it might be profitable to investigate even now, is what I would take away from that. Among other things, Lambi, you're kind of known as the Thanos guy. I recently got my fiance playing this game, and she just
Nice.
unlocked Thanos off the like reward track, right? And I got to thinking, what would it take to make Thanos elite again? So I guess I just want to pose the question to you. What do you view macro level? What are Thanos's biggest problems? And then we'll talk about some of the micro, like the micro being like, why doesn't Space Stone draw a card when it can't draw Thanos? All of that kind of stuff. But macro level, when you think of a Thanos deck, what are the problems that it has matching up into this metagame?
I mean, we're talking about Thanos now, like after the 10 nerfs that it got, right?
Yes.
We're talking about like
Yes.
literally now. Yeah. So the thing about Thanos, right? I think we were talking about Thanos then. It's hard to talk about Thanos now. Thanos then was like like the monster that it was because the stones replaced themselves, right? Like they used to all draw cards, and then obviously the stones effects were way more busted and stuff like that. Now the thing about Thanos is that like it's a clunkier deck overall. At the core of it, it's a way clunkier deck, right? Like, and the thing about clunkier decks is that like you see it's the same, a bit similar to Arisham as well. Like you see less of the stuff that you want because the stuff that you play, like the stones that you end your deck, don't all draw cards. So I think the biggest problem right now is the card draw issue in the deck, right? At the end of the day, it's one of the biggest like problems with the deck as well. Like you're filling a deck with stuff that are like they don't really do anything. They're just there because they have to be in the deck and they don't draw cards. So that's the biggest issue with Thanos right now. The macro with that. Like,
Yeah,
it's just you
I
don't
think
draw
you hit
cards.
on something that I really agree with, which is as a game, Marvel Snap has become more about executing your specific synergy or getting
Yes.
to the specific tech card that stops your opponent from doing that.
Mhm.
And Thanos is bad at both of those things
Correct.
because of the additional cards that are in it. And that is sort of a good segue. Like we'll sort of merge these two topics, right? Because that's what I wanted to talk about with the K-shaped metagame. When I talk about things being K-shaped, I'm talking about like either you are doing exponential amounts of points or you are very low on points and just doing a bunch of tech with whatever the most efficient points package is. And there's not really any room for people in between. The top tier decks are either maximal points or maximal tech. And there's no like halfway in between, no path there that represents something that's like halfway in between those two things, even though I think normally there would be. Aurora and Doom 2099 have typically represented that. Even Arishem has typically represented that. But the amount of output we're getting now from things like the combo decks that use Captain Carter, the Mother Ascani decks with Gambit, those decks are sort of prohibitive if you want to try to invest in something that's in that middle range, because it better have answers to both and it better have dodges for both. And that's just a really hard like thing to actually do. And so when we talk about Thanos, the big thing is like, okay, how would you describe this metagame? Number one thing I'd use to describe this metagame is there's a lot of Gambit Horsemen of Death, which obliterates a Thanos deck. Number two thing I'd use to describe this metagame is there's a lot of Captain Carter, which if I don't get my cards on time because I'm drawing stones instead, I lose to anyway. And so I do think that, like, yeah, slap some draws back on the stones. That's a really good thing to be doing here because of the way the metagame has become K-shaped. Thanos is not a good proactive deck, and it's not a good tech deck because it doesn't get them reliably.
Yeah, I mean the thing about this whole discussion is that like when you do get a deck that has that amount of tech cards and decent amount of points, I'm trying to say like pre-nerf techno-organic virus kind of stuff. Like that deck was really, really strong simply because you could be a tech deck with substantial amount of points, right? So that was why the deck was really, really good. Thanos kind of can't be anything. Like it's none of that. And it loses really hard to like you said, Gambit Horseman of Death right now. So it's just really very badly positioned in the meta, coupled with the fact that like the stones haven't been drawing cards for a very long time, and that's one of its biggest problems, regardless of what meta it's in.
And there are two forces happening here. The first is that the combo stuff is so powerful that the pressure on having your tech cards is immense, right? If you don't have your Cosmic Ghost Rider or your Shadow King, you're not beating the Carter deck. You're just not doing it, right? If you don't have your Mobius on 3, you're not beating someone copying Gambits. If you don't have your Stardust on 4, you're not beating someone doing Fire Hair stuff, right? Like or Fire Hair Phoenix Force things, right? Like you have all of these things where it's like their output is so massive that, and their stuff is so on board that you don't have the ability to play your tech cards late. And Thanos is way better when there's more gradation to that because he doesn't always draw his stuff in time. And right now, the way the K-shaped metagame has become, like the way in which this is sort of developed is you need to be as small of a deck as possible so you can have a chance in those matchups by drawing the things that actually help you. And that is something that, which brings us to next topic, Batroc has been doing really well. I think there are sort of two directions for Batroc to go, and they both sort of reflect the K-shaped metagame, right? One is a version of the list that I believe Chambo has been piloting, similar to the Andre Var Techno-Organic Virus list and the Andre Var V-Hand list. I genuinely love both of these deck builders because they build decks exactly how I do, which is to say they just take like 6 cards that are a point package and then like 6 tech cards, and they're just like, what? We're going. We're going. I
mean, that is the recipe for good decks at high infinite, like every single time, right? Points package, good tech cards, outplay.
But it's also especially important here because of the previous discussion we had about Thanos. Like, why is this rewarded now? It's because of the output of the combo decks getting so immense. We've had this level of synergy creep such that combo deck output is ridiculous. Mother Ascani is definitely a culprit here. But I wanted to talk about Batroc specifically because it's been a home for a lot of different things recently. There is a Batroc Sasquatch Mother Ascani deck. There is a Batroc Tech deck. There is a Batroc version of a Galactus First Steps deck. There is a Batroc Professor X deck. And the reason there are so many Batroc decks is because fundamentally the package is 6 cards. And that is Spider-Man Brand New Day Batroc, Kraven Sam Wilson, and Hydra Stomper, and then Silk as your backup Sam Wilson. And this is so powerful because there's no way to bloat it, right? You can add other things that synergize there, like Miles Morales and things of that nature. But the package is those 6 cards, and you do not need to put anything else in there for those cards to carry all of their weight. And I think that really speaks to like how there is basically no diminishing returns in the package. It's exactly as lean as it needs to be. It is the 6-card, super efficient, you are doing something strong package. And I really do think that, like, it's not a surprise that it did that well in my tournament. And the fact that we currently live in a world dominated by, like, Ascani Gambit is definitely holding this deck back. But I don't think it's holding it back nearly as much as people think that it is. This package is really good.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think if people want to, like, summarize what you just said, and like the main point of that, and I think to me this is the main point, right? Which is, okay, firstly, we can call it the Batroc package or whatever, but like since it's 6 cards, we could also call it the 6-pack, which sounds way better.
That is better.
Like,
yeah,
it's way better. Call it the 6-pack, right? Because like everybody 6-pack anyway. But like the point, the point is, right? You mentioned lean. Oh my god, lean also leans in with 6-pack. Okay, but anyway, but like. Okay, so it's a very lean package, which is the point of it. It's not about the fact that like, okay, the lean package is simply because that it gives you 6 more slots to play stuff, and that's like the most important thing, right? Like if 6 cards can carry the points of an entire deck, it just means there's 6 open slots to tech however so you want to, and that's why there's so many variations of this Batroc 6-pack thing, right? Because it's only 6 cards that carries the entire deck, so the other 6 can be whatever you want it to be.
Get lean, baby. Get that 6-pack.
Yeah, well, this is working out well.
Finally, Lambi has what I consider just a really cool announcement.
Yeah, dude. Okay. So I'm just gonna take it away. Like, so
Yep.
for the last few months, you guys know that I've been playing a lot of Riftbound, the League of Legends TCG. It's a really fun game, really good game. Been traveling for that as well. But that is not the announcement. That's something you guys probably already know. So the announcement is, I recently opened a card shop, like a physical TCG card shop. Like if you're in Singapore, you can come check it out. It's like super accessible. But yeah, so I opened a card shop. We're gonna be obviously doing Riftbound and some other popular card games like One Piece, Pokemon, stuff like that. So yeah, this is just like a very interesting like life direction that like KM is just like generously letting me share on this channel. Because I think at the end of the day, I've been doing card games my whole life, whether it's online, physical, whatsoever. It's like it is my life, card games. So the fact that now I can turn card games into a business for the foreseeable future is something that I'm really happy and excited, nervous as well. But I mean, I've never ran a card shop before, so like it's something that I really want to do well. So I just want to share with you guys that this is something that I've started, and
You
hopefully it
should you
goes
should
well.
tell them what the name is in case we have any viewers over there.
Yeah. So the name of the card shop, it's a League of Legends thing. It's called Doran's Cards. Doran is basically
Yeah.
the funny thing is I only know about this because I don't play League of Legends, but like I know about this because I googled. So the Doran is basically the guy that like it's like he's like a blacksmith or like create starter items kind
Yeah,
of guy.
the Doran's starter items. I played League of Legends like 10 years ago. The Doran's
Yeah.
items didn't build into anything else, but they had better stats than the other starter items.
Yeah, they were just basically like starter items
They were
of sorts, if I'm
solid.
not wrong. Yeah, solid. So basically, we are like a supposedly gonna be a solid card shop where you can start from. It's like the beginning of everything vibes. That's like
That's
what we want to
nice.
go
That's
for.
nice. That's good.
Yeah. Like so, like Faker says like all things. What does Faker say? Like all roads lead to Faker, right, or something like that. And for us, it's like all things start from Doran's. That kind. Okay, so this I literally just thought of this, but anyway, that sounds pretty cool. So yeah,
It's
so that's
good.
the thing. Open a card shop, guys.
Congratulations to Lambi for that. And
Yeah.
as always, thank you so much for watching. I've been KMBest. He's been Lambi series. That's been Boomerang, and Lambi's gonna take us out.
All right, guys, there's a new emote for the stream or something like that, for the chat, for the YouTube, whatever. But thank you for so much for being here. We'll see you guys real soon. Like, comment, and subscribe. Bye bye.